On the 18th of February 2023, I uploaded a video to the internet titled "The Darkest Depths of YouTube Kids Content." Now, while today I'm critical of some of the word choices I used within that video, and I'm not huge on the editing of it, this was one of the most important videos I've ever made in terms of message. In the years since this video went up, the landscape of the internet, and YouTube specifically, has changed. The struggles and strifes that face modern day children on the internet have been well documented, with the likes of Visual Venture, Turkey Tom, Gubby and Raymundo all making videos on the topic. Today, however, I want to do something a little bit different. I want to return to my initial video on the darkest depths of YouTube Kids content and question whether over the past year, anything has been done regarding any of the topics to alleviate the problems faced by the service. So today, we'll be discussing YouTube's breaches of children's privacy, the supposed revival of Elsagate, predators in the comments section, political propaganda that's aimed towards children, and the quality of this content slop that most children are being exposed to. If you want to watch the original video before you watch this one, you can if you want, but it's not essential because before every topic, I will be giving a little recap. With that said, let's start at the beginning with YouTube's previous violations of children's privacy. The root of this story dates back to September 2019, when news stories broke that Google and YouTube had been fined a total of $170 million by the Federal Trade Commission, or FTC, for their handling of the data of children under the age of 13. As I mentioned in the original video, this was a violation of the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, a US federal law that came into action back in the year 2000. If this is your first time hearing about the act, also known as COPPA, the law dictates that a child under the age of 13 cannot consent to having their online information collected, which is the reason that most social media sites only allow users over the age of 13 to use their services. For example, Twitter and Facebook. Now, one of the main reasons that social media platforms want to collect your data is so they can feed you targeted ads. Simply put, you're more likely to buy something from an ad that's been targeted towards you, and therefore it only makes sense for advertisement companies to place their ads on sites that force you to allow them to track cookies. Thus, most social media companies have thought that it doesn't make any sense to allow anyone that COPPA protects from using their service, at least from a financial perspective. YouTube in the modern day force their creators to admit if their content is targeted to an under 13 audience, and this is important because the ads they serve you for anything that's been deemed as YouTube Kids should be non-specific. So over the past year, has YouTube been good and stayed away from tracking children's data? The answer is no. In August of last year, the New York Times came out with an article titled "YouTube ads may have led to online tracking of children, research says." This article cites an Adlytics report that states while YouTube claimed it was going to stop serving personalized ads on YouTube Kids content, as of July 2023, there was evidence to suggest that this was not the case. Do keep this in mind though, Adlytics, the platform that wrote up this report, did mention that this is not definitive proof. But since the website for these brands would probably be opened up on Google, who own YouTube, you and your data are probably going to get caught anyway, regardless of age. The Adlytics report claimed that these brands don't know that their advertisements are being played over YouTube Kids videos, saying, "Despite Google's advertising policies, it appears that many advertisers have not configured their websites in a way that would anticipate young children visiting their sites." Specifically, many advertisers whose ads were observed being served on Made for Kids channels were observed setting ad targeting and tracking cookies on the consumer's device upon the user visiting their web pages. These websites did not appear to ask for parental consent before setting tracking cookies on the user's device. This would suggest that if a child were to inadvertently or accidentally click on an ad from one of these advertisers while watching a Made for Kids video on YouTube, the website of the advertiser would be opened and set ad tracking and targeting identifiers on the child's device. A child cannot consent to that, which is where the problem comes in. On top of that, they show how some of these ads may not be age appropriate. This one, for example, shows an upturned car and is for an injury lawyer. This one, from Paramount Plus, showed a clip from their show Special Ops Lioness. This show has an age rating of TVMA. It's intended for mature audiences, so this explosion isn't exactly age appropriate either. So over the past year, has YouTube got any better at staying away from data they're not supposed to see? It's arguable, but based upon these reports, no. But if you want to make sure that data brokers are kept away from information that you don't want them to see, then I'd recommend using Aura, the sponsor of today's video. If you're like me, online privacy is very important to you. There's a lot of information that I don't disclose online, and I'd like to keep it like that for as long as I can. Fortunately, Aura shows me which data brokers are selling my information and automatically submits opt-out requests. This gives me peace of mind because I can go throughout my day knowing that Aura is working for me in the background, making sure that my information isn't shared with anyone that I don't want getting a hold of it. Within no time, your information will be purged throughout the internet to keep you safer and more secure. Aura comes with a bundle of the most efficient online protection tools, such as a VPN, password manager, and data removal broker, which is cheaper than going out and individually getting all of these features separately. And if that sounds good, this next part will sound even better, because Aura is currently doing a 14-day free trial, so you can try out the product to see if it's for you. If you're interested in trying out Aura, all you have to do is head down into the description and click on my personalized link. Again, just click the link in the description and you'll have Aura for 14 days free of charge. I'd like to give a big thank you to Aura for being today's video sponsor. For our next topic, we're setting our sights on Elsagate. When the original video was published, this was around the time that Elsagate had been blowing up once more. People were going online and saying that Elsagate had returned, but I made the point that I don't think it ever actually left. So over the past year, has this kind of content continued to stick around, or has it been snuffed out for good? A TLDR if you don't know what Elsagate was. In the mid to late 2010s, it was discovered that there was an entire genre of video on YouTube that posed as harmless kids content, but actually contained imagery and themes that were extremely inappropriate for young viewers watching. This content often enticed young viewers in by using characters that they love in the thumbnails, such as Mickey Mouse, Spider-Man, and Elsa, which is where the scandal got its name. Over the past year, has Elsagate content gone away? The answer is no. Just like I said in the original video, it's just shifted. Now, in the first draft of the script for this video, I did actually write that I felt as though Elsagate content had decreased over the past year. I felt as though early last year there had been a spike in it, and then over the next couple of months, it slowly but surely come down. In the first draft, that's what I had anticipated. However, it's since come to my attention that this is not the case, because as I was doing research into this video, obviously I clicked on a few videos that would have been YouTube Kids content. And in one of them, I saw to the side, in the recommended, the kind of for you up next, I saw a channel that would shock me to my core. A channel by the name of Apple Comic. It seems as though Apple Comics makes videos reading not safe for work comics of the show Gravity Falls. Gravity Falls, if you don't know it, was an animated kids show made by Disney. After I clicked on that video to investigate, I saw that in the recommended tab of that video was a bunch of other videos similar to it. The thumbnails for almost all of them featured cartoon characters from your childhood within a sexualized comic aesthetic. One channel that I found that did this was called Comic Monkey, and within some of the thumbnails of their videos was not safe for work art of Jaden animations and Summer from Rick and Morty, and then a few random anime girls. Going further down the rabbit hole, I found another channel called Peach Comics that had 11,000 subscribers and featured suggestive thumbnails of characters such as Lola Bunny, Gwen from the Total Drama series, Summer from Rick and Morty again, Velma from Scooby-Doo, and Kim Possible, amongst many other characters. The wildest part to me about this channel was that it had more than 3 million views and is fully monetized. Every single video that I hovered the mouse over played a short clip. At least as of the videos that I looked into, none of them showed anything explicit. However, these thumbnails are surely not within YouTube's guidelines. I'm gonna have to blur them because they're essentially ahegao faces across the board. Upon seeing a video from Peach Comics, I discovered another channel called Lemon Comics, and as you might notice, a pattern is starting to emerge. The strange thing about Lemon Comics though was that it featured a lot of the same thumbnails as the previous channels. Of course, once more, recognisable children's cartoon characters featured in their thumbnails, and they have been drawn to be sexually suggestive. The rabbit hole just kept on going on and on from there. Every new video I clicked on showed more comic channels that use characters commonly featured within children's media as their thumbnails. And they all have their channels fully monetized, with some of them racking up hundreds of thousands of views every single day. Now, do I think this kind of content was as bad as Elsagate's? Not really, no, because as I mentioned, nothing explicit was shown. Anytime there would be something explicit, they would kind of cut it out from the comic. Regardless, these comics are highly suggestive and the thumbnails are borderline porn. On top of that, some of these characters are not over the age of consent. Some of them are clearly depicted in their cartoons or comics or whatever it might be to be teenagers or younger. And B, the only reason that I feel as though I was suggested this content in the first place was because I was watching Cocomelon videos and, kids content in preparation for making this. I've never before been recommended anything like this. It was only in preparation to this video where I'm watching content that kids would consume in which this popped up on the side. I'm actually quite surprised that I haven't seen anyone make videos covering this yet, so if I am the first person to uncover this rabbit hole, I want to be able to plant my flagpole in the ground and dub this Comicgate. In fairness to everyone else, this seems to have only taken off over the past couple of weeks, so it's entirely possible that unless you're making a video about Elsagate and therefore you're looking up kids' content to see it recommended in the side tab, or you're actively seeking it out, you probably wouldn't see this. Regardless, could this be the next evolution of Elsagate content? It's definitely possible. This is a rabbit hole that seems to have gone over a lot of people's heads, but some of these channels have literally hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and they seem to be thousands in number. How could exposure to this sort of thing impact a child? Fortunately, this transitions me quite well into the next discussion point from the original video, that being children's stunted development. Which, I can't lie, has the situation improved since last year? Has it? So a year ago, I cited Dr. Piyush Mantane's child cohort study that researched child behavioural patterns between children aged 3 to 5. It found evidence to suggest that the longer that your child is watching screens, the worse it is for their development. This goes for television, yes, but especially online content. I made this point in the original video, but a TV show for children over the age of say 2 will have structure to it. It'll have a storyline that's been written, directed, edited and whatnot by people who have put actual effort into trying to create a piece of media that entertains and, most importantly, informs. Dora the Explorer has storylines, Peppa Pig has storylines, the Rugrats have storylines. A YouTube video, however, does not need that. It could be a 10-minute video of someone playing in a slime bath. It doesn't need to teach you anything, it doesn't need to teach morals, it just needs to be colourful and flashy, and this is how we've gotten to where we are. With mind-numbing, flashy hyper-editing, this is what we see when we leave children to their own devices on their own devices. They gravitate towards this because they don't know any better, and it's specifically designed to catch their eye, making them click and keep their attention better than anything thought-provoking or subtle.
Poppy Playtime Chapter 3 has the craziest monsters you will ever see.
We'll show you all of the smiling critters and secret hacks in the game that will blow your mind.
There might even be a secret LankyBox.exe monster hidden at the end of the new game.
Wait, does that mean that LankyBox is in Poppy Playtime Chapter 3?
A Sunday Times article stated that a recent Ofcom report found that viewers aged 4 to 15 watched just 25 minutes of public service broadcast channels in 2021, down from 69 minutes a decade earlier. Astonishingly, children aged 7 to 16 years watch YouTube every day for 2 hours on average. The Times goes on to say that monitoring what your child was watching on TV wasn't as important because what was available was largely entertaining and educational. With YouTube, on the other hand, the second that video ends, you need to make sure what's on next is appropriate and safe to watch, let alone educational. The article describes some YouTube videos like crack. Faraz Osman, a television producer and chairman of the BAFTA's Children Advisory Committee, then made a point, which I hadn't considered before, and it was a chilling observation. Osman said, "You're fighting strong forces, because the main motivation of YouTube and the like is to keep viewers of all ages watching. Addiction is obviously a strong word, but it's a word I use. The algorithm is designed to hold attention for as long as possible." And this is something that I had forgotten about. The algorithm doesn't discriminate. Its one and only goal is to keep people on there, which, as we've already established, is bad for a child's development. Worse yet, the content that's on there doesn't actually have to abide by any regulations. The Sunday Times article then made yet another good point in that traditional forms of television have to be greenlit by several different people, including educational consultants and speech and language experts, before they can be made. YouTube, of course, doesn't have to do that, and until there's legislation put in place that holds YouTube content aimed at kids up to at least an acceptable standard, it doesn't look like this is ever going to change. Perhaps I'll go more into depth about this kind of stuff in a future video, so please let me know if you'd like to see that down in the comments. Speaking of comments, however, it's time to check back in with YouTube to see how it's done over the past year in stopping predators from infiltrating comment sections and putting young people in grave danger. So back in the original video regarding YouTube Kids content, I gave YouTube some props for their gradual efforts to clamp down on predators in comment sections, noting that they had removed comments from anything deemed as for kids, which I still believe was a good move. However, there are still some problems. Has YouTube over the past year cleaned up its act and permanently purged predators from its service? The answer is no, they have not. They've just moved them from the comments to the search tab. Back in August of last year, Joshua Barber of the Dad Challenge podcast sat down with Fox News for an interview, and he's quoted as talking about the playlists that people have created. Barber's podcast, by the way, seems to be heavily focused on critiquing family vloggers and child exploitation on YouTube, so this is the kind of guy who's going to know his onions on the topic, even better than me. Nevertheless, if you remember back to the original video, the Hey Arnold playlists were a big problem around that time. Essentially, people would make these inappropriate playlists and then label them Hey Arnold or Hey Arnold full episodes, and for those of you who don't know, Hey Arnold was a kids show that ran on Nickelodeon back in the 90s and early noughties. Therefore, you might have some children finding these playlists. Either way, they were eventually found, and ever since then, it seems as though the trend has continued. Barber seems to have found some more of these playlists, saying, "There's these no-name accounts, generally that have a dude on the front, and they have like 60 to 80 subscribers on them. They have no content posted, but they have their own playlists, and in some of these playlists, all there was are kids in bathing suits, kids in diapers, kids at the beach, kids in bathtubs, kids at the dentist, things like that." Fox News found 13 of the described playlists, which ranged from tens to hundreds of videos, and shared the playlists with YouTube. The platform removed 7 of the playlists for violating their child safety policy, and said they prohibit all content that endangers children. So it's all doom and gloom, right? This is inescapable, it's set to continue, and YouTube will just sit back and collect the residuals on these views. Well, maybe not. This isn't going to be a popular position to take, but I will stand in to defend YouTube because they have put some measures in place to try and snuff this kind of thing out. A YouTube spokesperson told Fox News that in the first quarter of 2023, they had removed 2.2 million videos along with 87 million comments that violated their child safety policy. Still, more needs to be done. This is a ball that simply cannot be dropped. And I think that the first way to try and push back against it begins with us, the creators. This might sound a bit militant, but until family channels in the way that we know them are eradicated, I don't see this kind of problem going away. But from one wretched side of YouTube content to the other, let's talk about politics. Buckle up, because it's time to review whether over the past year children have been force-fed political propaganda through the internet. So in the original video, I bring up that people on the right of the political spectrum were more vocal about accusing the left of using social media to indoctrinate their children. The left also accuses the right of doing this, but the right is, as I said last year, a little bit more vocal in this point. However, there is a caveat. For this one, there have been less articles posted about this being a problem, at least on YouTube. The blame over the past year seems to have mostly shifted towards Hollywood, with Disney in particular seeing the brunt of it. There seems to have been fewer videos over the past year that were crafted to a child audience that sent shockwaves through the internet. The only one that I could really find was a Planned Parenthood video about virginity, which immediately got hate bombed for saying that virginity is a myth used to control women.
Let me cut to the chase. Virginity is a completely made-up concept. It's a term that was created simply to control and shame people, mainly women.
That Planned Parenthood video was reacted to by Brett Cooper, who I believe I also mentioned within the original video on this topic. For anyone that doesn't know her, she's a part of the Daily Wire. I spoke about this in a video about commentary channels, but many people have essentially accused her of being a corporate-backed creator, targeting content towards teens and young people to feed them conservatism, so it's very back and forth. In truth, not too much in that regard has changed since last year. Though, while there haven't been many videos that I could find over the past year that caused outrage because of their political biases aimed towards children, a recent study published over the past year showed a fascinating trend emerge between young people who are beginning to find their political allegiances. This fascinating trend that's emerging is that young men and young women who are starting to become politically informed are growing more politically different than ever before. Daniel Cox, the director of the Survey Center on American Life and Research in Polling and Public Opinion, found that throughout the years, in several different countries around the world, young women between the ages of 18 to 29 have only been becoming more liberal, and young men only more conservative. This is strange because young people in general are usually quite liberal. Now, is this YouTube's doing? No, not exactly, but let's be honest, a vast majority of people under the age of 30 years old watch YouTube content frequently, and have done for a long time. Especially today, there are a lot more young people, kids especially, who prefer YouTube to traditional media. And therefore, you could be inclined to think that perhaps there's something within social media that has caused this divide. A Guardian article released only a few weeks ago claimed that Gen Z boys were more likely than baby boomers to believe that feminism is harmful. Within this article, they frequently mention online conservative figures such as Peterson and Tate. Professor Rosie Campbell, the director of the Global Institute for Women's Leadership at King's, said, "The fact that this group is the first to derive most of their information from social media is likely to be at least part of the explanation." And when you look into the countries that Cox studied, all of them seem to start heavily deviating in the early 2010s, just as YouTube began coming into the mainstream. This rift predates the entire Sigma male movement, by the way, so blaming all of this on Andrew Tate is just a null argument, even if he may have accelerated it over the past few years. Let's be honest with ourselves, it's not all social media is doing, even if it would be easy to blame it. And even within social media, people have found themselves down rabbit holes on Twitter, Reddit, and TikTok. But I think that it would be fair to state that YouTube had at least a part to play. Young people use the platform, a lot of them use it for news and politics, and then years later, these battle lines are drawn. A fascinating conversation for sure. Keep it civil, but please let me know what you think down in the comments. I'd love to read your guys' responses because this is such an endlessly interesting talking point. And I guess if you're going to be down there, you might as well give this video a like if you enjoyed it and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you want to see more from me, then why not check out my video on Vine controversies? This was the poisonous brain rot of people my age when they were growing up. It's a fun video, and I'm sure that you'll enjoy it. Aside from that, I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.